Yes, with home buying affordability continuing to be a challenge, we're seeing an increase in a trend that we haven't seen much in past years. It's often called houses without spouses. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means looking to buy a home with another person who's not your romantic partner, not your spouse, typically a close personal friend. This can be an effective way to combat home buying affordability. And it can provide you some pretty good benefits. For example, if you're able to buy a home jointly with another person, a friend, you're going to be able to lock in your housing costs, both with respect to the cost of the home and your mortgage payment. And that will insulate you from future rental increases if you continue to be a renter. The other thing it does is it gives you the opportunity to build wealth. Once you obtain that home ownership, you now own an asset, which in most environments is going to increase in value. That's going to build up your equity and then build up the wealth for both you and your partner that you're eventually going to split up at a future date. Now, this is usually done where two partners are going to buy a home large enough that they're going to occupy it together. But I would argue another option that's not being considered a whole lot yet is consider multi-unit properties, 2 to 4 unit properties, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac recently changed the guidelines to where you can buy one of those with 5% down as long as you live in one of the units. That could be a great option for a houses without spouses scenario. Now, if you're going to pursue this, you have to be careful you're not going to ruin your friendship by purchasing this home together due to possible disagreements in the future. So I highly encourage you got to put your agreement in written form. It doesn't have to be a fancy legal document, hiring lawyers and all that, but you want to put everything down in writing that you and your co-partner, your co-buyer mutually agree to. And a couple of things to consider in that regard. If mortgage financing is involved, which it's going to be probably 99% of the time, I would argue you both want to be mutually obligated on the mortgage. Now, that can be a factor. What if one of you have high credit score and one of you have low credit score? That can definitely affect your mortgage terms. So you want to cover that issue as you're putting your agreement together. The other thing is when you're going to buy that home, you want to go make sure that both partners are entitled to the home jointly. I think that's important along with joint obligation on the mortgage. Now, that being said, there's a couple things to consider. You've got to make sure you have in that agreement how you're going to split up the closing funds, the down payment, the closing costs, how you're going to split up the monthly payment. I would argue it should be equal, 50-50. You've got property-related expenses, property taxes and homeowners insurance. I would argue that should be split evenly among the partners. I would argue your best bet is to set up an impound account for taxes and insurance. That way it's covered in your monthly mortgage payment to the lender, and you can be assured they're going to be paid without any omission by one of the partners. And you also have to have some sort of agreement as to maintenance and repair costs associated with the home. So you want to make sure that's established well in your agreement. But the biggest thing to consider when this houses with spouses scenario, when you're buying a home with a non-romantic partner, with just a close personal friend, what I think you really need to focus on is the later event where there's going to be a departure from the residence. In a lot of cases, you're going to end up seeing a case where one of the partners is going to get a job transfer, or maybe they end up getting married, so they want to exit the partnership. How are you going to deal with that? You've got to establish valuation on the property. Best way to do that is get an appraisal from a state licensed appraiser. Once you know the property value from the appraisal, deduct the remaining mortgage balance, that gross amount difference, that's your gross equity that can be split between the two parties. Now, if one of the partners wants to stay while the other partner is going to depart, well, you really want to get that departing partner off the existing mortgage and off title. Best way to do that is a refinance. That can be tricky because if it took both of you to qualify for the mortgage to buy the home, it may not be possible for the remaining partner who wants to stay in the home when the other partner departs. That person may not be able to qualify for that refinance mortgage to pay off the existing mortgage balance and get enough proceeds to buy out the departing partner. So that can be a real challenge. And in some cases, it may not really be fixable. And if so, you might want to consider that you just pick a later date in the future, either that you mutually agree you're going to sell the home outright, even if you don't have a departing situation, or due to a life event, you then agree that because of one of the partners needing to depart for whatever that reason is, that you then jointly agree to sell the home and then split up the proceeds. So with those provisions, I think co-buying with a non-romantic partner can be a great idea.
Art. What if the two non-romantic partners want to utilize the temporary buy-down strategy you've discussed? Is this option open to them since they are not married?
Actually, yes, I would argue that combining the houses without spouses home buying strategy, again, the idea of buying a home with a non-romantic partner, usually a personal friend, combining that strategy with a temporary buy down is a great idea. In fact, I would think it would work best if you combined a 3-2-1 temporary buy down strategy with the houses without spouses home purchase. Part of the reason for that, as I've commented on earlier, is you have to understand your exit strategy in the future when one or both of the partners maybe want to go their separate ways. So there's going to be some event date in the future where maybe that partnership's going to end. And in the meantime, what you're trying to do is achieve home ownership sooner than later and do it in an affordable way, and then be able to start building equity, building wealth that eventually you can tap into. Each partner maybe go their separate ways and then use their respective proceeds to go on and buy their own home by themselves or invest in other real estate, maybe rental real estate, etc. Why a 3-2-1 buy down is a perfect adjunct to the houses without spouses strategy is because it provides you much lower monthly payments over that first 3-year period, in particular the first year. And with these kind of price levels, that first year 3% temporary buy down, 3% below the note rate, can provide you monthly payment savings that can exceed $1,000 a month on the mortgage. Well, if you're able to achieve that and then split that mortgage payment between the two partners, that improves your affordability even better. And the 3-2-1 period, the start of that fourth year, barring any other life event that would cause one of the partners to need to exit the partnership, the written agreement between the partners might even entail using that start of the fourth year as your date to sell the home, cash in your equity, split up your proceeds, and then go ahead and go on separately to buy another home or buy other rental real estate and so forth. So I think they actually go together very well. And that way it becomes sort of a two-pronged approach of attacking housing affordability and entering the housing market in an affordable way. So I think it's a great idea.